with not being kept up to date with the latest bridge closing, traffic delays, and water main breaks on Gross Eel? This app changes everything. Gross Eel Connect is designed to provide you with a mobile webpage with info on meetings, events, alerts, things to do, maps, and recreation. All of this information in the palm of your hands. Go to the Apple Store and Google Play and download now.
Oh, yeah, now they're hot. Yes. So there we go. Call the meeting to order at, let's make it 7:52. And let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. All.
Okay, once again, the entire board is present. We're going to conduct business as planned. This time, we're going to take a moment to recognize a couple of members of the community that recently left us, and I'll ask Mr. Malvesto to go first, please, Tom, on Mr. Walters.
Mr. Supervisor, as most of us are aware, we've just lost a very good friend and neighbor on Grosse Ile, Bob Walters. He fought a long and hard battle with a disease that finally took him from us. Bob's accomplishments and his and what he has done to and for Grosse Ile, there's just too many to even begin to name. But 40 years on the volunteer fire department, a very strong supporter and active member in the Knights of Columbus, and it goes on and on. He was a man who just gave to everybody in more ways than we can count. So if we could just take a moment of silence, out of respect for Bob. And
I'm going to ask Treasurer Van Oss to recognize a member of the commission he served on, Mr. Walt Stoll.
Yes. It's great sorrow that I announce that Mr. Stoll passed away. Again, from that same insidious disease. It might have been a different form, but he lost about a 3.5 year battle. He was a long-term standing member on the DPS commission. A hell of a golfer and a good friend. So if we can have a moment of silence for these two people.
Let's remember this in just a moment. Gentlemen, thank you for that. With that, let's move on to additions and deletions to tonight's agenda. And I'll begin by asking the board to remove action item number 5, the amendment to the Airport Advisory Committee membership. Okay. And I just didn't have time to get with Mr. Duker, Mr. Anderson, and because this is an ordinance, not a resolution, it just takes a little bit stricter scrutiny. So those in favor of deleting action item 5 from the tonight's agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. Any other additions or deletions to tonight's agenda?
Just like to make an addition to addendum to action item number 4, that to add to that action item to authorize Mr. Duker to sign the contracts.
Support.
And that's just is at my request, it just cleans up the contract signing process. So any those in favor of adding that sentence to action item number 4, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. That'll be amended. Any other additions, deletions to tonight's agenda? None offered. Those in favor of approving tonight's agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. The agenda stands as amended. With that, I'll open it up to brief public comment to tonight's agenda items. From the public present, I see no one interested, so let's carry on. We have no presentations scheduled. Consent agenda, Mr. Treasurer.
I'd make a motion to approve consent agenda 17-038, and that includes the minutes of the August 28, 2017 regular meeting and the check registers dated through September 30th, 2017.
Support.
Okay, consent agenda. Those in favor of any comments, questions from the board on tonight's consent agenda? None offered. Those in favor of approving the consent agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? None offered. The consent agenda stands as approved. On to action items. Mr. Malvesto.
Mr. Supervisor, our proposed legislation is to approve the appointment of Dallas Kelsey to the Grosse Ile Fire Commission.
Support.
Okay, moved by Trustee Malvester, seconded by Trustee Budney to approve the appointment of Mr. Dallas Kelsey, Supervisor Dallas Kelsey, to the Fire Commission.
I'm going to read the history and purpose, or the explanation here, and if Chief Murdoch has anything to say, I'd invite him to come up. But the Fire Commission for the Township of Grosse Ile is established. The commission consists of 5 residents of the township, one of which is a township board member. Terms of the office are 6 years ending April 3rd in the year of expiration, except for the township board member, being myself. Dallas Kelsey will be replacing Stu Keeler. Stu had resigned a number of months back, and we've gone through an interview process. And we're asking that Dallas Kelsey be approved to fill Stu's term until the ending of April 3rd, 2022. Again, we went through an interview process. We interviewed a number of different candidates. We thought that Dallas would best fill requirements for the commission, and we hope that you'll vote to approve him. Chief, do you have anything to say? Chief's good with it?
Chief's good with it. Any comments from the board? Okay, those in favor of approving of the appointment of Dallas Kelsey to the Grosse Ile Fire Commission, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None offered. Dallas, welcome aboard once again.
He's going to be a great addition to our commission. So.
Okay, good. Thanks. All right.
All right. I would like to make a motion to approve the appointment of Cindy Ackerman based on the recommendation of the Island Beautification Committee for the term ending March 2020. So it's appointment of Cindy Ackerman to the Island Beautification Committee based on the recommendation of the Island Beautification Committee for the term ending March 2020.
Support.
All right, moved by Clerk O'Connor, seconded by Trustee Budney to approve an appointment to the Island Beautification. Questions, comments among the board? Do we have anyone from Island Beautification tonight? I guess we'll have to trust their judgment. Those in favor of approving the appointment of Cindy Ackerman based on the recommendation of the Island Beautification Committee for the term ending March 2020, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered?
I was going to say we could just add, since we don't know her that well, but on her application it said she previously served as a board member for the Native Plant Society in Richland, Washington. So that will definitely be a good addition to our Island Beautification Committee.
So, Ms. Ackerman, welcome aboard. See, we go to, this one's mine. Okay.
Pass that one down there.
Okay, so now the fun part's over. Action item is to resolved by the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees that there be levied on the taxable value of said township for the year 2017 winter billing a tax of 9.9387 mils on the taxable value thereof, said value being $588,307,899. Well, you really jumped on that one. But this is how we pay the bills. So the background: the winter tax levy must be approved by the Township Board by September 30th. We don't have much time on that. And the L429, which is the property value assessment sheet submitted to Wayne County. And going on for the second time since 2006, the millage rate is being calculated using an MRF millage reduction fraction, otherwise known as the Headley millage reduction fraction. Headley Amendment was passed by the voters of the state of Michigan in 1978, which requires local units of government to reduce its millage when annual growth on existing property is greater than the rate of inflation. With the passage of Proposal A in 1994, the growth on existing property is impacted by the uncapping of taxable value due to a transfer on a property. These uncappings cause the taxable values to increase, in most cases, greater than the rate of inflation. And I'm going to expand on this a little bit, and it's the Headley was largely supplanted by Proposal A, and it's choking the life out of us because those communities, particularly ours, where we work very hard to keep our property values up. The housing value goes up, but as that housing value goes up, Headley which was passed along with Proposal A. Both were passed in that time frame where property values will always go up. It'll never go down, and we wanted to protect homeowners from getting taxed from out of their homes. Well, in 2008, we learned otherwise. We have our individual housing values have gone up significantly, but that's forced us to jam down through the Headley reduction. For one thing, our general operating millage. So it's something the legislature has to fix, and it's something I'm working on, but it's complicated and it's got to go to the voters. But anyway, what we're stuck with now is the 9.9387 mills on taxable value thereof. And again, continuing, should the police department millage pass on November 7th, a revised L4029 must be submitted to Wayne County prior to the preparation of the 2017 winter roll. A board meeting is scheduled for Monday, 13th of November. Questions, comments among the board? Again, I'm sorry, Ms. O'Connor.
I was going to ask Brian or Dale, do we have to read the actual millage into the record, the language and the numbers? No. Okay. The resolution, you mean? Okay.
Well, what I can do, these are the millage that are on there, though. The allocated millage, which we were authorized, and Ms. Darsniak, I wish you were here because she could explain this better than anyone, how the allocated millage was established. There was a, what do they call that, county millage board. Again, these were all disbanded when the mindset was property values are always going to increase. So normally we would have pleaded with them to increase our allocated millage. Well, that board doesn't exist anymore. So the allocated millage just gets ratcheted back. Every year our property values go up, the allocated millage comes down. If we were at our 1.85, we'd have a budget surplus this year. But moving on, allocated millage is down to 1.2539 mills. The extra voted millage, which was 2 mills, is down to 1.9102 mills. Police, formerly 1 mill, is 0.9947 mills. Another police millage, which was 0.75, is now 0.7460. I'll just go down. 1.4920 for fire operations, fire equipment, 0.4968. Recreation, 0.4968. Recreation ops, 0.3729. Road maintenance, 0.3978. Drainage, 0.3282. Library, 0.2. Judgment bond, 1.1. That one isn't going down. And bike path millage, 0.1494 for a total of 9.9387. Actually, none of those were passed at those decimals, so that's what Headley has been doing to us, and it's got to be fixed at the state legislature. So anyway, I guess that's my problem. My question now is, or the question for the board now is, the further comments before I bring it into this unpleasant soiree? None? Okay, good. Those in favor of levying on the taxable value of Grosse Ile Township for the year 2017 winter tax billing a tax of 9.9387 mills on the taxable value thereof, said value being $588,307,899. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. So levied. And I will sign that shortly. Let's move on to action item number...
Yes. Based on a recommendation of the Airfield Commerce Park Manager and the Grosse Ile Airport Commerce Park Commission, the Township Board hereby awards a landscape architectural master plan contract to Russell Design based on a proposal dated 6/25/17 in the amount not to exceed $12,500. I've got Mike up here, but just as a little explanation, you know.
Excuse me, Ted, do you want to add that signature?
Oh, yeah, and there was an addition that to allow Mike to sign the contract.
The port.
Basically, the Commerce Park commission is extremely concerned about the aesthetic and the landscaping and the general look of the airport, being as though it takes up such a huge amount of our property here. And we get a lot of people now that we're affiliated somewhat with recreation, where we have the soccer fields. We're allowing the football field to be utilized by one of the gyro groups. And it's important that aesthetically we stay on top of this, because it can get ugly in a hurry. So we've looked at several ways to handle this, and the commission has come up with the fact that what we need is a master plan to give us some direction. We're not going to be able to do it all at one time because it's going to be very, very costly. So I'll let Mike take it from there.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer and Township Board. A little bit of background. A couple of years ago, myself and the commission, we were struggling with our appearance and landscaping. At that time, I believe it was 2 years ago, we added a line item into the budget. It was a beautification, is what it was classified as. And I tried to, as a manager, target our areas that were I felt our appearance was lacking, mainly our berms, Meridian and Grow, our main Commerce Park sign. They were heavily covered in weeds. So we've been I've been using that beautification line item to clean up the common areas now. I feel like we've gotten them to a semi-presentable condition. They look nice. They're presentable. So now we still have this line item, and moving forward, the question is, instead of going at this aimlessly, we felt the commission needed a plan, and this would be a great first step. So this will kind of give us a broad overview on my goals from my perspective, and some of the commissions were obviously low cost. The airport and Commerce Park's on a budget, so we want to make sure it's affordable, deer resistant, and some kind of continuity throughout the Commerce Park and airport that kind of ties a theme together, makes it feel a little more special. I think over the last 20 years, the Commerce Park and airport have been fighting hard to clean the property up and making it presentable. I think this is definitely a great next step.
Questions for Mr. Duker? Ms. O'Connor? Or Mr. Nelson?
The Grow Road, as you drive past here, it's grass for a while, and then it becomes gravel, dirt, and kind of looks nasty.
Sure.
If it was even, and I don't know how much we use it for, maybe we use it for parking, for overflow parking, but if we could just grow grass on that, it would look a lot nicer. And then as you move down east, it doesn't always look cut real well or often enough. And I'm not trying to beat anybody up here, but it just doesn't look like.
Sure. Those are some of the issues I think we're trying to tackle, is get kind of a.
I mean, I know it is what it is, and there's old buildings, and I don't have a problem with the old buildings, but it just seems like there's things inside fences that, if we could hide, might look a little better. That's
correct.
All. Thanks.
Yep, I think that's definitely, I'll include those in the notes. And part that the consultant will definitely look at is how to make it more of a, whether we have, it is a Commerce Park, so there are some ugly parts. How do we make that a little more palatable for the community to drive by and things like that? That definitely will all be taken into consideration.
Ms. O'Connor.
Yeah. So, Mike, at this board, we've talked about a lot of different kinds of master plans. There's a recreation master plan. There's a township-wide master plan. Could you just kind of explain to the public, as well as those people, the people here on the board, what exactly will be entailed in this master plan? It's called an architectural master plan, but you're also talking about landscaping. So what are you kind of hoping that this plan will do?
If you turn to page 2 in the proposal, I can walk through some of these. It says the phase may include, but it's not limited to, entry walls, piers, and signage. So our main Commerce Park sign coming down Meridian, a couple of our main corners, Grow and Meridian Road there, as well as the airport's, I would call it the front facade of the airport along Grow Road. Landscaping design elements. We were discussing some kind of trees, which we have gotten grants for in the past, dressing up the area, some kind of uniformity in our trees. We have a lot of different landscaping and looks on the airport, and we're trying to get some kind of a uniform look to it. They'll prepare a budget for us. Again, we're looking for low cost, so he'll give us some rough budgetary numbers, know what we're looking at. And this is, as Ted said, Mr. Treasurer said, this is a project that we're just trying to get a master plan, so as we get this beautification, our annual allotment that we put for beautification or grounds and maintenance and stuff, we can start planning and allocating funds to that. So it's trying to kind of give us an idea of if we want to go forward with some of the plans, what we're looking at. There'll be represent images and kind of give us an overall design concept. That's pretty much it. Just trying to tie all the property together.
And so also, you and the commission will have a lot of input on this. You'll probably have public input.
Correct.
You know, the company itself, Russell's, is not going to tell you what to do. They're going to guide you to do what you're looking for. They're going to help you get to a goal.
Correct. I would say that, so the board knows my chairman, one of his main goals and one of his personal passions is landscaping. So I expect us to have our finger in the project pretty heavily. I think we set up at least 3. We wanted to have a very preliminary kind of direction from the consultant, and the direction was we would meet then, make sure we're all on the right page, because I don't want to start spending money and have him go off on a different direction than what our vision is. I want to make sure he's working for us. So that's correct. I would assume there would be at least 2 or 3 meetings with the commission along the way, and then updates to the board as well.
Just to comment, this Russell design has been utilized by the DDA, and they're responsible for Macomb Commons and the landscaping that's gone down there. So we've had a real good experience with their layout privileges.
Brian, one more thing. The pilot house, I love Jim Cordes, but the heave troughs are falling off the building, the paint's falling off, it doesn't look real good.
Sure.
Is there any way we could maybe speed that process up?
We may be able to have some communications with the tenant during this process. Maybe they're willing to take a step with us while we're doing our own
All right.
cleanup. I know he's been taking that in phases. He kind of does
That's fine.
one of the elevations a building at a time, but I know the west side.
I don't want to throw him under the bus. It's okay.
Brian, I have a question. Mike, with respect to this plan, I would be very interested in knowing what we're going to be doing with the tenants. Are the tenants going to be bound to this? You've mentioned Pilot House. We have other people down here. You have 50, I believe, tenants that are renting. Is this going to be a plan that everybody is expected to adhere to? Essentially, what are we getting for $12,500?
I don't think this will directly fiscally involve the tenants. I think this is more of the Airport and Commerce Park Commission saying how are we going to move forward with our own landscaping on our property that our tenants occupy and dressing all that up. So I don't think we'll levy anything against our tenants, or there may be some way to ask them to participate in some of the projects along. Maybe we include them in some of it and it's a shared or a joint effort. I think that could be looked at. That hasn't really been discussed yet, but that's definitely a good point.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments for Mr. Duker? Okay, with none offered. Okay. Those in favor of following the recommendation from the Airfield Commerce Park Manager and the Grosse Ile Airport Commerce Park Commission, the Grosse Ile Township Board hereby awards a landscape architectural master plan contract with Russell Design based on a proposal dated June 25th of 2017 in an amount not to exceed $12,500. Additionally, the board further authorizes Mr. Duker to sign such contract.
Thank you.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None offered? Thank you, Mr. Duker.
Thank you, Township Board.
That will conclude tonight's action items. With that, we'll step on to Clerk's Report. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. My fantastic staff working hard to organize our election for November 7th. It's a special election. It's a millage renewal to maintain current police department operations. If your name is on our absent voter list, you would have received your applications by now, and those applications will apply for this election if you would like to have an absent voter ballot sent to you. You can also get an absent voter ballot sent to you by sending an email to the township clerks, correct, Brian? And or I don't think a phone call is adequate, or for the application it's adequate. Okay, and all right. So the last day to register to vote if you are a new voter in the area, is October 10th for the November 7th special election. You can register to vote in our Township Hall, at the Wayne County Clerk's office, or at any Secretary of State's office branch. A special note to anyone who has kids who are now away at college. This happens, unfortunately, every year. A lot of kids have registered to vote, but we don't have a signature on file. Or we do have a signature, but they've never voted physically in person. Those young voters will need to present themselves at the clerk's office in person so that we can validate person and signature before we can actually send them an absent voter ballot to their university. So if you have a young university student who wants to vote in this November election, please encourage them on their next visit home to stop by at the clerk's office to present themselves with ID. We're also open the Saturday before the election. You can vote your absent voter ballot here in Township Hall. So if your kids cannot get an actual ballot sent to them, they might plan to come home that weekend so that they can vote in person on that Saturday. We are hiring part-time seasonal election inspectors, and we are looking for Wayne County residents who are a minimum of 16 years old, who are able to attend pre-election training sessions, and who are willing and able to work full day on election day at a voting precinct or at our absent ballot counting board. You will need to have your own transportation. Our locations, of course, are the polling places on the island and here at Township Hall. Daily rate starts at $140 a day, and if you are a chairperson of a precinct, it can go as high as $245 for the day, depending on your qualifications and assignment. Now, that's not money to sneeze at, and it's your service to the community and to our democracy that is being paid for. We know that this kind of work doesn't come for free. We want to have people who are qualified and who are going to put in a good, long, hard day. What we're looking for is people who have laptop computer skills, but they are not mandatory. My son Kiernan is 17, and he's going to be getting in touch with Mr. Friel to say that he's interested, and he's talking to some of his friends at the high school. If you know of any high school or college students who would like to make a little extra cash to work at the polls, that would be very, very helpful to us, because those kind of students are usually not so afraid of the technology and of the laptops. So you can have them apply at Township Hall and or give us a call or send an email. And, of course, you can always request an application for an absent voter ballot in person, by mail, or by phone. So that's the official end of the clerk's report. And I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to take part in the first Paint the Town Red. I talked with Mr. Supervisor here because he happened to see me in a convertible with a senior pair of the homecoming court. And no, I didn't just wheedle my way in there. That young prince up there was my kid Kiernan. And his princess was Marianne Kukla, and her mother was very generous. Her dad drove the convertible, and they offered me the opportunity as the mom to ride alongside. And it was a breathtaking experience. The street was lined with probably every kid from Grosse Ile Public Schools. And every kid seemed to have some sort of Red Devils, PTA, PAT, Gyra, all kinds of red shirts and sweatshirts and pom-poms and so forth. And the reaction of the kids to the princes and princesses in the cars, the reaction to the floats that these young people put together. I mean, those made our floats look pretty damn ridiculous when you think about they had moving parts and music and so forth. But it was a really delight from from one end of Macomb Street to the next, just packed with families and kids and grandparents, and it was just very, very exciting. And I think you really are building up on something for us, for our community, because after the parade, people stuck around for some of the activities. And of course, it was the game day, and my husband had to park somewhere in Windsor for us to even get to the game. But on Saturday, it was the day of the homecoming dance, and I think we all had high hopes for activities on Macomb Street, and they didn't quite pan out, but I'm hoping they'll grow. But as the kids were dancing at the high school, in the gym turned into a mosh pit, us parents got to do a dance with our kids, and then we were kind of gently escorted out the door quite early. And we heard music on Macomb Street, and Chad had a techno disco set up over there on the corner of Lyons, and it was quite exciting, but there weren't very many people there, and I think it's growing. It's got to start somewhere. I imagine after the kids were booted out of the auditorium at 10 o'clock, they probably went over there too. But it was just so exciting, and I know a lot of people spoke to me at Kroger, both during and after, and we're very pleased to see, this event take root. So, Angela, I want to compliment you and the rec department and the Rotary and all the groups that took part in this. With the bike ride and brain's not cooperating right now. Can't think of all the details. But it was an exciting weekend for the community, and I just hope it just keeps growing. Very good. Thank you.
Well, since Ms. O'Connor brought up Paint the Town Red, I'm just going to continue from my perspective on it. We had our DDA director, we had our rec director, we had our Island Fest Commission chair, all worked, 3 24-hour days, straight through. There was never a time at Lions Park that Angela wasn't there. So I thought it was a great time through Sunday afternoon, and the governor, the district governor from Windsor of Rotary came over and visited. The race was well attended. It was just a great weekend. And you two ladies seem to work together pretty well. You're sitting next to each other, so you must have gotten along reasonably well. It was a good time. So, Angela, Kim, thank you so much for just showing us a good time and getting people back on Macomb Street. So we'll expect more next year, but thank you again. All right, now I'll get out of the queue here and turn it over to the treasurer.
All right, thanks, Brian. The August financial reports weren't available at the time of this meeting. They'll be available for the next board meeting. However, our investment report is online on my website. You can go there and see where the cash that the township has is being held. The summer tax bills were due. The due date for the summer tax bill has passed. That was the 14th. We are continuing to accept summer tax payments with a 1% per month penalty until March of 2018. Please note that the local bank branches cannot accept late payments for taxes. They have to be paid here. In March, again, they will roll over to the Wayne County treasurers. Property owners who have new mortgages, escrow accounts, may want to check online at growseal.com to ensure that your 2017 summer tax payments have been made by their mortgage companies. We've run into a few, not very many, but there's been a few of them that they assumed were being paid, but they weren't being paid. So it would behoove you to go online, check to make sure your taxes were paid if you've recently changed your mortgage companies. And as of September 25th, 2017, we've collected 94% of our 2017 summer tax rolls, and that's just about standard to where we are. Our Airport Commerce Park Commission meeting was last Monday. And some of the things that we dealt with, we just dealt with the master plan. We have a number of issues that we talk about every month. It's really a very interesting meeting to get involved in because the Commerce Park and the airfield is autonomous to the township, but none of the funds from the township or taxpayers go to finance it. It's all done within itself. And this group makes those decisions that keeps it off your tax rolls. So it's a pretty important commission. I don't have anything else.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. We'll move on to trustee liaison reports. So we'll start with Mr. Nelson.
Thanks, Mr. Supervisor. Number one, my thunder always gets stolen by somebody else. So I echo totally what Mr. Loftus said about the two young ladies that are with us tonight. That was a huge thing to obviously put on, and I'm sure it'll grow. And I'm not sure Chad can survive much more, but we're probably gonna try and make him. He's just such a, he never stops. He's just he's a ball of energy. Yeah. So thank you for that. Angela, do you have anything you want to talk about? I'd like to have you come up.
Thank you. Thank you for all the nice comments for Kim and I. We wanted to take a few minutes to just acknowledge so many people that took part and partnered with us. First, like you had mentioned, Chad Novak, he never stops. John Bergen, he worked his tail off on behalf of Rotary. We had a ton of Rotary members who, throughout the weeks and throughout the weekend, really, really chipped in. And I think at the end of the weekend, all four of us can say that we were pretty proud of the efforts. Friday was awesome to see everybody participate in the parade and lined up and down the street. Saturday, we had a really nice, steady crowd all throughout the day. It did get a little bit quieter than I would have expected in the craft beer tent at that hour. And, we take some of those things and we can learn from that. We also battled 90-degree days, which was unheard of, and bees. And there was an event that went out of Ford Yacht Club. We had the fire department golf outing, kids' activities, all those different kinds of things that go on throughout the weekend. But we still had a really nice steady group. Recreation did an awesome job with the activities that they put on for the kids especially, and I think that's important too because Kim jumped right in the last couple of months and really knocked it out of the park for the kids activities. Also on Saturday we had a couple of entries for the pie baking contest. We had a ton of cakewalk donations. We had to bring in another table because there were so many donations. And those are just individuals from the community that thought, this is a great idea. I want to participate. The schools were great working up through everything. They even added in the school tours in the morning and the bus transportation. The sports groups, we had the cheer team, the band came out for pep rally on Friday, and that was great because these high school kids are really busy on homecoming weekend, and so they were able to carve time out and make that really special. It goes without saying, Dr. Khaled, who allowed us to use his property, plug in, do anything we needed to do. I think we need to acknowledge him and his efforts and recognizing the importance of putting these community events down on Macomb Street. The Garden Club, there was that huge mess of trees at Lions Park that's now a nice little garden with mums, and they acted quickly, especially Sue Lowry. She was down there. Within an hour, she laid down 10 bags of mulch on her own, and they've been so easy and great to work with, and really sprucing that up and helping that look nice. The Kiwanis jumped in at Macomb Commons. We had Kiwanis Kids Corner. The Knights of Columbus put on an awesome pancake breakfast. I don't know how many of you were able to make it, but I took my family down there, and it was a great time on Sunday morning. Westcroft Gardens jumped in, and they provided free of charge hayride up and down all day long on that hot afternoon on Saturday to bring people up and down Macomb Street. All the community groups that saw the importance of having representation out on Macomb Street. Let's see, the businesses that took part and decorated, we had some great decorations. We had decorations winners that we announced on Sunday, and the folks who announced that on Sunday were the homecoming court winners, who again, 2 high school kids all weekend long they've been busy, and they still took the time out at 2:30 on Sunday afternoon to come and make those announcements, which was pretty great. BPAC jumped in and led the scooter rally and the kids' bike parade. Groseal Pet and Garden Center, she donated things all weekend long, whatever we needed, mums, decorations. She donated some things to the recreation raffle basket. We had a little taste of Groseal, free samples, completely free. Smokies brought down some samples. Groseal Yacht Club brought down some samples. Ume Cuisine, who just opened, and they just had a baby the next day. The owner is just bringing home a new baby, and they brought down sushi. And Groseal Pet and Garden Center also donated to the Taste of Groseal. And the Groseal Rocks group, Jennifer Pace, who started that, they were down there all afternoon, brought down supplies, brought down rocks, and let kids and people alike put rocks and add things down to just spruce that up. So it was really just a great weekend all in all. Oh, and Steve Zink, who cut out the cutout of the devil, was so cool, and that added to the parade, I think, as well. And he donated his time and energy doing that. And then all the countless people who helped spread the word about the event. I mean, we struggle with how do we get the communication, how do we market it, how do we get the word out, and so countless people stepped in for that. So I want to thank everybody. It was a great weekend. We will build on it. We've learned some things, and we'll take that from there. So, any questions? No.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay. Catch up on your rest, Angela. Well done, and Kim, thanks. Mr. Nelson?
Kim, you want to come up and share the wealth here with how we're doing in recreation? Please.
Absolutely. I just want to thank a special shout to Chad, Angela, and John Bergen. Coming in still 4 months on the job, great team to work with. We had a ball. I mean, we had fun. Now, about that paint the pie in the face, I don't know where you guys were, but I had to stick my head
I was playing golf
in that thing. So I did take a few pies. And I got the kids going, parents were going, so I was covered in whipped cream at 5:15 p.m. on Saturday, and then the bees got me. So, but it was very fun. We had a nice crowd again. Angela kind of covered everything, but I just want to shout out to all the community groups that helped, and our great team here. It was very fun, and I think being part of this community, I love living here now. I love seeing what I can do, what Angela can do, and what Chad and John and everybody can do. So very proud to be part of this team. Just a couple things from the recreation side. We go from one event to the next. The Fall Festival is October 14th from 1 to 4 p.m. at the farm. It's $5 at the gate. We're going to offer hay rides, crafts, cider donuts, pumpkin patch, face painting, and children's games. I am looking for volunteers for that. I actually had my daughter, who's in the audience tonight. She's sitting over there. I want to thank her and one of her hockey buddies who worked with me all weekend, lifting tables. And I love this age group, 12, 13, 14, 15. If you want to come out and help recreation, it really is an honor to work and see what you can do for the community. So with these events that we offer, I encourage any volunteers, call the rec department, come find me at Kroger or wherever, because we can get a lot done even with our young community. And then also in the channels, there was the first annual Island Winterfest. That's coming up in February, which is a ways away, but we do start planning for these things now. We do have a time change on that. It was advertised from 6 to 9. We did make a time change from 4 to 7 p.m. on that event. So, and I'll get that out as time gets a little bit closer. And then also we have some fall golf rates going on. The regular golfer is $10 to walk and $14 with the cart. Our senior and junior golfers, $8 to walk and $12 with the cart. And then we also are offering senior Sundays, $7 to walk, and then with the cart, obviously, an extra $4. And then we are also running a student special on golf. This is Monday through Friday, every day after school with a student ID, $5 for 9 holes. We want to try to get our students out of the golf course that you can't golf 9 holes for $5. So, and obviously the weather's working with us. So we need our golfers. We want to keep our course open as long as we can. So come out and golf. We've got some good rates for you. And also, just one other event I did want to announce this evening, our senior luncheon is scheduled for Wednesday, October 11th at 12:30 at the farm. Encouraging all seniors. I know a lot of our seniors don't have access to laptops. I really want to encourage our senior citizens to join us. This is a fun time. I'm present at every senior luncheon. We have live music, raffle prizes. Annette does a wonderful job on this program, and I always want to thank her, all the work that she does for the rec department as well. So again, the senior luncheon is Wednesday, October 11th at 12:30, and it is, I believe, $10 for our seniors. Just call the rec department and get registered. And I think that's all. Any questions?
Have you talked about the new floor that's in and working?
Yeah, the new floor has been installed. That was installed back in August. It looks beautiful for those that have not been out there. I also put some new curtains out at the farm. And my staff just works hard every day just to keep the floor clean, tidy. I'm kind of a stickler on that kind of stuff. So, and I just want to also shout out to Cameron Kelms, who's with the rec department, and Christopher Fleming. They work their tail off for the department as well, and Gene Kowalski, who helped this weekend as well. So I just wanted to thank them personally. So.
I just wanted to mention, you might, especially with the student rates for the golf course, we have 2 fairly good-sized golf teams for men and women at the high school. Might reach out to the coach or coaches or Mr. Oakler and let them know specifically, because I don't think a lot of the kids are watching us tonight. But
yeah, and I do see the coaches. They do come in.
Yeah.
Grosse Ile does golf there, and so Julie knows that, and I try to get the word out to them as well. So
excellent.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
I have a couple more things, so I'm long-winded tonight. I want to give a shout-out to Kaylee, Kim's daughter, because she is the goalie for the Little Caesars 12-year-old hockey team. And when I was that age, the rink was in my backyard, and I had to run the hose out the backyard. My dad about killed me because the cold air is blowing in the house. Well, her team only plays at the new Little Caesars Arena. How cool is that? Living vicariously, I guess, is what I'm doing. There's a rec commission meeting Thursday night at 7 o'clock right here with our new chair, Chad Novak. It's on TV, so if you're interested in some new information, please tune in or come to the meeting. And I think that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Budney.
Thank you, Brian. Jim, don't get me going on hockey. I'll outdo you 3-1. 3-1.
Wasn't my intention.
As usual, no ZBA this month. My biggest fear is 1 month we're actually going to have a meeting, and I'll just say no ZBA this month. So I think we've had one meeting this year. Hard to outdo Paint the Town Red, but I think I have something here. At our October 10th DPS meeting, we're going to talk about roads. And we really, really would like the residents to show up for that. We really want your input. Our roads are our roads. Everybody's aware of them. We want to do something about it. It is going to cost us something, but we want your input. We want to know what you think. We want to know what you want to spend. We want to know what projects you're interested in. I mean, we obviously could. I mean, it's easy to come up with a road project on Grosse Ile, but we'd love to get your input. So October 10th, 7 o'clock, right here. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Budney. Mr. Bletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have the pleasure of serving on 2 commissions. The first is the Open Space Greenways. Several things. We're going to have an executive session before our next meeting to pursue specific solution to the replacement of the ferry trail between Gage and Lowry Roads. Second thing is that we have laid new chips down in the trail on Meridian across from the elementary school. That trail's in great condition. You've got great weather to get out there and explore it, use it. It's a little over a half a mile. It's a loop trail, and it's absolutely wonderful this time of year, particularly with the fall colors coming on, and it is dry. You will have a great experience out there. With respect to the Police Commission, 3 things. We're going to have an open house on Sunday, October 15th from 4 to 6 p.m. Everyone, absolutely everyone is invited. Come in and experience the jail, get a short visit, the equipment that we have, get to know some of the officers, see some of the equipment that we have and use, and understand what your police department does to protect you. Come and meet the chief. If you have anything specific you want to talk to the chief about, he's got an open door that day. Second thing is that we are continuing with our hiring process for replacement to Sergeant Mark Relic. Mark has indicated he's retiring in December, and we're moving forward soliciting applications. We're going to be doing an interview process and bringing a recommendation before the board, hopefully before Mark retires, so that we can start getting ahead of the curve on having officers going through their initiation period, their probation period, so that they can start working on their own, and we can save some overtime and some other expenses that way. And the third thing is that the police department is going to be placing its agenda on the website. So if anybody is interested in coming down and visiting, you'll be able to see what's going to be on the agenda. We meet in the Public Safety Building the second Tuesday of each month. So the first agenda will be out for the October 10 meeting. We meet at 7 o'clock. Same thing with the open space. We meet on the first Tuesday, which would be October 3rd, 7 o'clock in this room. Police meets in public safety. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Bletcher. Move on to Trustee Tom Malvesto. Mr. Malvesto.
Thank you, Brian. October 1st, Sunday, this coming Sunday, there will be an open house at the fire department. For any of you who have attended that in the past, you know just what a great day it is for the kids. They get to climb all over the equipment and hear the sirens and just everything else, plus hot dogs. Same as... So come on down. They're going to. It'll be a fun day. I don't have the exact number of calls, but the calls keep tolling up for the fire department, both emergency and fire. The guys are always on the road. The Firemen's Association had their golf outing over this past weekend. They had 110 people playing. There was steak dinner afterwards. It was quite a successful day for them. So congratulations, guys. As you know, we've just had Dallas Kelsey has been approved for our new commission member. We're looking forward to Dell getting on board. If nothing else, we can put all the dirty jobs on Dell. New guy in the block, new kid. The BPAC participated in over the festivities on Macomb this past weekend. We have a meeting coming up. I'm sorry, we just had a meeting, and we're going to be doing some restaining on 2 of the bridges along the bike path along Meridian. One we're going to let go mainly because we're looking at replacing the deck next year possibly, and it would be just wouldn't be a wise expenditure right now to put new stain on it. But the other 2 bridges will be restained, and that'll be by the Thoroughfare Canal and then on Bridge Road, but Bridge or Horse Mill. I'm sorry, Horse Mill. But the very active group, and they got a lot of plans. They put up 1 sample doggy waste bag container down by the Commons, but there's going to be more coming. So as you walk your dogs down the path and you don't have a proper disposal bag, there will be some for your for use. Just make sure you dispose of it when you take it home. So I think that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Malvesto. Move on to the Township Attorney. Nothing to report. Township Manager. Mr. Riem.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have 3 brief items I'd like to talk about tonight. The first, week before last, everyone knows the Wayne County Parkway Bridge was closed for an inspection. No, we do not have any report, any official word, anything of that nature at this time, unless, Mr. Supervisor, you received something this afternoon.
Not in the last 6 hours.
So we understand that there's a lot of talk, and really the only talk that I care to share right now is we don't have official word from Wayne County on the status of the repairs or proposed repairs or whatever that may be. But as we mentioned at the last meeting, under news and announcements on the front of our webpage, on the bottom of that column you will see a tab called Wayne County Bridge Updates. So that is where we post the notices and press releases and that information, et cetera. So that is one way where you can get that information. So we will post what we have when we have it. As noticed earlier, Finance Director Ian Darsnick is not here this evening. She's at a finance conference, and I told her I would report the legal fees for Mr. Clark, and those are $3,899. And I do want to add one thing to Trustee Budney's comments about the October 10th, 7 p.m. DPS road input session. One of the most common calls I get are about our roads. So I urge everyone to do just that, attend. And if you're not able to attend, send me an email, send Trustee Budney an email so we can solicit your input on what you would like your priority for the roads to be. Obviously, funding is an issue. Funding's an issue locally. Funding's an issue at the Wayne County level. Funding's an issue at the state level. But we're trying to do everything we can to partner with Wayne County. We're in the process of trying to finalize the program for the West River Road water main replacement. Wayne County has given us a verbal agreement to pave the other half of the roadway, and that'll take care of a large portion of West River Road, which we know is very, very, very worn. So we will do everything we can. We will continue to do that. But if there are super high priorities, please report them to the commission so that we can make that part of our priority and put that on the list. So with that, nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riem.
Dale, I just want to add to that besides your input and everything, also come with your questions as to why we have to do it. That'll be discussed, but please come to it because we do hear a lot of road complaints.
Okay, well, pretty much everything's been covered. I've just got a couple of additions. May have seen this out just for your planning purposes. Biddle Avenue is going to be closed between Ford, which is the extension of North Line. So it's pretty much north of downtown Wyandotte from Ford up to Goddard. They're doing some work on Consolidated Rail Corporation is working on some crossing repairs. So don't plan on going up Biddle. As some of us are finding out, with 75 closed and now Biddle Jefferson closed that portion. So 4th Street's going to be extra busy.
Brian, how long is that closed for?
It's only supposed to be closed for this week. Okay. It's supposed to be. So if that changes, I'll try to update you. And okay, tomorrow you'll see that flags, at least at the Township Hall, will be at half staff, and it's mourning the loss of Trooper Timothy O'Neill. He was killed. He was a 3-year veteran of Michigan State Police. He was killed on duty on his motorcycle in Plainfield Township over on the west side of the state. 28 years old. He was due to be married on October 7th. So think about it. Police work is still dangerous work, and God bless them. That concludes my report. With that, we'll go to our discussion item. And
thank you. I'm going to take the lead on this. I was approached by our friends with the Grosse Ile Nature and Land Conservancy. I'm going to ask them to come up, or whoever's going to be their spokesman. Basically, there's going to be a proposed ordinance. I am proposing that we submit an ordinance, and this is step one. It's very detailed. Mr. Kantz has approached me, and basically he said, we want to ban coal tar. And I says, yeah, what's that? Well, he presented about 95 pages that tells me exactly what it is. And I think he's got a great idea, and I think the Land Conservancy does. So I'd like them to explain it, because this is step one, and if there's any questions at this level, because the next time it comes back, it will come back as an action after we have the attorney review it, and we get it in front of our commissions that need to review this thing. So, Peter, you want to kind of bring us up to date and maybe even read that letter? That was the first portion of it.
Yeah, I brought a few members of the Grosse Ile Nature and Land Conservancy with me because I'm not the technical expert on this proposal. John Leon is here. He actually put the proposal together, the ordinance proposal together, did a lot of the background research on it. Then I have Dr. Elizabeth Hugel here as one of our technical experts, and Dr. Paul Glore here is here also as one of our technical experts. So if you have any technical questions, please direct them to them. If you have any questions on the exact wording of the ordinance, direct it to John. I'll have John come up here in a minute. Let me just go through a few things. Like Ted said, what is coal tar sealant? It's that black stuff you put on your driveway and on your parking lots. And if you bought your sealer at Lowe's or Home Depot or ACO, it doesn't have coal tar sealant in it. It's okay. You can use that. It's the guys that come around in the trucks, the pickup trucks with that big black tank on the back and squirt that stuff all over here. That's the bad stuff. That's the stuff we want to ban. Coal tar-based sealer is applied widely on driveways, parking lots, and even playgrounds as a maintenance practice. Coal tar seal coats are hazardous. They are high in polycyclic aromatic that's why the technical experts are here. Aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs, many of which have been identified as toxic and carcinogenic. While there are many sources of PAHs, coal tar sealants contain significantly higher concentrations than other sources, such as gas emissions and road dust. There are available alternatives, like I said, Home Depot and Lowe's and ACO. They decided they weren't going to sell these coal tar sealants. They sell either a latex-based sealant or an asphalt-based sealant instead. Health risks from this coal tar sealant: for someone who spends their lifetime living adjacent to a coal tar sealed coated pavement, the average excess cancer risk is estimated to be 38 times higher than someone who does not live next to one of these driveways or parking lots. Much of the increased risk occurs during early childhood. Children play on or near these surfaces and are therefore more likely to inhale or ingest the PAHs associated with coal tar sealant. The effects of coal tar sealant on rivers and lakes. Here we are in Grosse Ile, we're surrounded by the river. In rivers and lakes, PAHs are found primarily in the sediments. Several recent studies have found that runoff from coal tar treated surfaces cause death, developmental issues, and other adverse effects in fish and aquatic organisms. Studies show that 50 to 75% of all PAHs found in sediments within the Great Lakes region, that's us, come from coal tar sealants. Why are we proposing this? Grosse Ile is sort of behind the curve on something like this, especially in the state of Michigan. The state of Washington, the whole state has already banned coal tar sealants. The state of Michigan, or Minnesota, the whole state has banned coal tar sealants. The Washington, D.C., they've banned it. In Michigan, there's about 20 different cities or townships that have banned it. I think John will go through those, what they are. But some of the big ones are Ann Arbor. They banned it in Ann Arbor. They banned it in Dexter. They banned it in West Bloomfield. So most of the areas around us that are in the watershed for the Great Lakes and the Detroit River have banned coal tar sealants. So this is why we're proposing the ban. It's a health risk to the people here on Grosse Ile. It's a health risk to our environment, the fish and everything that lives around here. So our proposal is, and John will bring it forward, to ban these
in our community. Thank you. John? Yes. Yes.
I'm not on. Peter,
Yes.
has our state taken any position on this?
It's been brought to our state legislator. As far as I know, it's still tied up to the state legislation. It's one of those things that, how politicians are. It takes time to get things done. But I don't think we want to wait. As a matter of fact, I got to congratulate the board here because I think it was 5 years ago, they decided that they would not use these sealers on our bike paths or on the township parking lots. So now it's just a question, do we want to use it, the rest of our paved surfaces? And the answer is no, obviously. We just need to come up with an ordinance to enforce that.
Is there a flip side to the argument? I mean, is it everybody is behind this, or
of course not. There are lobbyists that lobby for this coal tar sealant because it's a byproduct of the coking process. Coke is used to make steel, obviously, and this is just a byproduct of that. So what are they going to do with it? So there's a whole lobbying effort out there to say, hey, we got to use this stuff someplace, and let's just spread it on your parking lots and on your driveways, and it'll just disappear into the atmosphere somehow.
Does their argument have any backing, anything to back up that it's safe?
No scientific backing. The scientific facts are, as we can explain to you, that it is a hazardous material.
Thanks, Pete.
Peter, one quick question, if I may. The Water Pollution Control Act 1948 was the first national effort to control pollution and runoff in the waterways, and it was supplemented in 1972 by the Clean Water Act, what we commonly know as. Is the federal government taking any position with this?
They haven't yet. I mean, the fact that it's already been banned in Washington, D.C., indicates that they're well aware of it, obviously. But again, it's like anything else. It's low on their list of priorities. The current administration is probably even lower on their list than it was on the previous administration. So I don't expect any federal action on this in the near term. But this is something we can do for our community, for our children, for the health of our environment. We can do this now.
Good. Thank you.
Yep. John?
So I know all of you received a letter and a proposed ordinance.
John, I was just suggesting Dale lower the podium a little bit.
There he is. Yeah. I knew there was somebody else on the other side. So this evening, I'd like to ask if there are specific questions on the ordinance that was proposed. Since this was received August the 29th by the township, are there specific questions on this ordinance or changes that you would like to ask us to do?
I personally don't have any questions at all. I've read over it a couple times. There are some issues that I see I would want legal to give me a report on, such as banning the sale or something of that nature. But other than that, there's nothing on here that I personally disagree with. I just want to make sure that we're not stepping outside of our bounds here before it comes back as an ordinance.
Yes, I would say that in one of the sections where it says no person shall sell or offer, that there could be two words put into that paragraph that says for use within the township, and
sure,
and let it go.
Yeah, that would help that a lot, because if somebody does want to sell it, like I'm sure the hardware store doesn't carry it, but it's difficult for us as a governing body to stop anybody from selling anything.
As Peter mentioned, there are all over the United States, including Connecticut, by the way, that just came up. I don't know if this was on.
Yeah.
So this map is almost up to date. It doesn't show that Connecticut is one of the states that has an outright ban. But you can see generally, as you get between the Mississippi and the West Coast, coal tar is not used. Basically, it's not sold. It's an eastern product from the Midwest going east, and basically it's because of the amount of coal that's mined in the east. That is one of the items. The other thing I'd like to show is so these are the areas within the United States that have either banned coal tar or have some restrictions on it. The cities or townships in red are in Michigan. So it's an expanding list where this issue has been taken up and passed by local governments. The basis for our proposal tonight was from Van Buren Township and also Ann Arbor. Back when this started, the U.S. Geological Survey were doing histories, trying to get a history of lakebed sediments and watersheds to get a contaminant history. And what they found was that there was a downward trend in PCBs and heavy metals, but yet there was an upward trend in these PAHs, or the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. So what they did was they identified that the major sources of these PAHs were, in fact, identified as coal tar. So in the Great Lakes, it was very easily identified, and with that information, the Huron River Watershed Council started a movement to educate townships and cities on the issues of coal tar. So the U.S. Geological Survey that is based in Texas had Baylor do a university study that predicted what Peter talked about was a 38 times higher cancer possibilities of cancer living adjacent to the coal tar, and the Huron Township had their first really large, I would say, victory on their part. I think that's the way they would look at it in Ann Arbor. So I was asked about the cost of asphalt, the sealant, coal tar sealant, as opposed to these other types of sealants, and basically it breaks down to it's pretty much an even cost, and the life expectancy has also become fairly even with the use of these non-coal tar, non-coal tar products. One of the hidden costs which I came across was that a lot of times we don't talk about, people don't realize that in Minnesota and Maryland, when in their stormwater retention pond basins, basically when a basin would fill up, they would take the sediments out, they would spread it around, dry it out, and it was just used without any issues. What's happening with the PAHs now is that they're spending, and this was in Minnesota, they said that if only 10% of their basins had to be, the sediment has to be taken out, it would cost them over $1 billion. So this has to, when they clean these basins out, they have to be taken to a landfill. So I think I think that's it on my part. If there are any questions that you have for me.
Mr. Leon, do you know, okay, you said this proposed ordinance was modeled after thanks, Jim. The Van Buren Township and to some extent Ann Arbor. Has this been tested in court yet? Have any of these been challenged in court?
I don't know that.
Well, I think I'll ask. Okay. I mean, obviously, if it lost in a court or there were some amendments, we'd want to tweak the ordinance to that effect. But
there was a major federal lawsuit against the EPA in which the EPA agreed in 2019 to start prohibiting any of the industrial facilities that use coal tar products from being, let me put this simple, from being allowed to use stormwater drainage permits. So it's out there, it's already recognized at that level, and there's some it looks like maybe some possibly bigger lawsuits at a much higher level will address some of the smaller community issues.
But no one has challenged the restrictions and overturned the restrictions of such an ordinance. Okay.
Just as historical, 2005 was the earliest that these bans have taken place. So they've been in. Okay. They've been in.
They have some life, and there's been exposure. Mr. Treasurer,
I just want to put a process here so this doesn't languish. So what I would suggest, and the board, if any of the board members have any better ideas, let me know. But what I would suggest is that we supply our township attorney with the ordinance that's proposed, have him review that ordinance prior to the next board meeting. Gives him a couple of weeks to look this thing over. I would suggest that anybody on the board that has any questions, there's on the letter, the presentation letter, Mr. Kantz's phone number is there, and I'm sure he can put us through to any one of his board members or commission members that can answer our questions. And I would like to see this back as an action item at the last meeting of October. That'll give it a month. And if that process is okay with you, then it puts a motion on it so that we know it's going to get done going forward.
let's get it advertised that we're going this route so we have plenty of time for public comment.
You can put it on the website.
Yeah,
for sure.
Plenty of time for public comment. Well,
I'd like to ask a question if I can.
Okay, I'll have Mr. Heil go first, and then Liz, Ms. Hugel will. Go ahead, Bill. Mike to the microphone, please. You know the rules.
Excuse me.
Sure.
I'm Bill Heil. I live on East River. I noticed that a large proportion of those townships and communities were around Ann Arbor. Do any of them have experience in enforcing these rules? It's one thing to have an idea. It's another to make it work. And I'm wondering what you might know about that, because we could learn from that.
Okay. A valid point. Mr. Leon, are you aware of any enforcement cases?
I'm not aware of any.
Do they pass an ordinance and look away, or are they strictly enforcing it?
That is not what I have gotten back, that they are in fact enforcing it, and that there aren't the issues, because we don't hear of any lawsuits. We don't hear of that sort of activity going on.
Okay. All right, Ms. Hugel?
Since this is a technical topic, I'll say Dr. Liz Hugel, address 29797 East River Road, Grosse Ile. I want to just make a couple of comments in response to some of the questions that did arise already. I can come back and address Mr. Hiles if needed, but one of the questions that was asked was about the materials. It was mentioned that they're a waste product essentially from our coal industry, but interestingly enough, a good portion of the coal tar sealants are imported. imported from China. So it's not even necessarily all our own waste material. We're importing waste to put this on our driveways or parking lots, basically to increase the risk of cancer for all of our people. I want to also mention some of the EPA activities. They have not actually created any rulings. I guess it would still be up to Congress to enact legislation, but basically the EPA has found that the coal tar sealer runoff is toxic to aquatic life, no question about that. Scientific studies have shown that. They recommend that local bans are an effective way to address this pollution source. So they've actually come out and said that it's best to start at the local level to enforce this and control it. They've published a fact sheet to discourage use, and they have rejected the request by the industry, so by lobbyists, to discredit and retract the studies done by the USGS. One word about enforcement. I think some areas, some townships or communities do have pretty high fines if they do find that the coal tar sealants are placed on properties instead of, say, the asphalt sealants or acrylic sealants. And there are ways to chemically test, pretty simple. Even our own police department could do the chemical test, going to the hardware store for some mineral oil and a knife and doing some scrapes. I can certainly help you with that. So it shouldn't be a problem. I don't think that the ban that we have proposed has actually a really high penalty for use, but hopefully that won't be a problem. I think the biggest thing is putting out the word that the community does not allow it, and then the companies that basically look to put it on our properties won't bother coming to Grosse Ile anymore. So, as it was mentioned, the do-it-yourself people, they are not going to be buying these coal tar sealants from Lowe's or Home Depot or wherever they go. Hopefully our own hardware store doesn't have it either. I haven't checked. So anyway, those were a couple of the statements. Since I'm a scientist and I like numbers, I'll just leave you with the thought that the amount of PAHs in coal tar sealants is about 70,000 parts per million. If you consider that the allowable level in soil, and this wouldn't necessarily be soil that your kids might be playing in or your pets, the limit for some of the PAHs is like 0.5 or 5 parts per million. So you know that this coal tar sealant is going to degrade on the surface just from weathering, let alone your car coming back and forth over it. And that winds up in the soil, and it winds up in people's homes. And even if you're not putting it on your driveway and your neighbor is, or 2 houses down, you're being affected by it. So I appreciate your openness to listen to our proposal on this topic, and feel free to ask us if you have other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hugel. I'm sorry.
Well, I have a question for Dale, but
Mr. Leon, is your presentation pretty much? Yes. Okay, well, we do have a bit of a plan going forward, and Ms. O'Connor, what's your...
Thank you. I think a good point was raised about the enforcement and administration. And Dale, at the bottom of page 2, section C, where it addresses enforcement and administration, maybe you and Tom can work together to kind of lay out how that would look for Grosse Ile. Would it be in the building department? Would it be the police department? Would it be the community ordinance enforcement officer? Who would actually do the reconnaissance and fining?
That's the part. That's the part of this that has to, we need to talk about and look at, because we don't want to put an ordinance on the books and then just not enforce it because we don't.
And we
have
want to
the
make
ability.
sure that what is written is proper.
Yeah.
So, but I like Ted's plan. I'm sorry.
It has to be practical. It has to be enforced.
Exactly. But we also have to have a mechanism to make it happen.
Yeah, and that's something we'll have to work on.
Well,
I thank you for bringing this to us, by the way, all of you. Thank you.
It can make for a better community. Yeah. So.
Well, when you read in the paper now that they find plastic in the water, that's pretty disturbing. So we have a lot of work to do, and this is, one step in the right direction. Nope.
Just a question: is that time frame pretty much in line with what you were hoping for? I can't guarantee we'll be able to meet that, but it gives us a direction anyway.
Yes, probably the season for this is almost over for Coltar. So we were hoping that by spring we would have something in force.
I'd like to move it a little faster than that if we can.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Great.
Okay. I guess that concludes the presentation. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Again, we have a plan going forward. So with that, we'll now open to additional public comment. Any topic? 3 minutes. Who's first? Mr. Walker.
Good evening. Several months ago, probably back in the spring, a number of the people from the Cheshire Thorpe Court neighborhood came before your board complaining about drainage problems in their area. The DPS Commission undertook a drainage improvement program, which I think was wrapped up probably a month ago, where they actually put in some drainage tile that allowed the water from their neighborhood to flow into what I presume is the Park Lane drain. Bill Kostick, the DPS chairman, was very much involved in that. He spent a number of days walking through my yard to make sure that the work was done properly. They restored the property quite well. They had McNally Landscaping come out and regrade a number of yards and replace the landscaping. Let's see. They had representatives from CE Range come out and ensure that the proper grade was restored. In my particular yard, one of their surveyors came out and relocated all of the surveying stakes that were put in my yard before the house was built. The gentleman said, I expected to spend 2 or 3 days doing this. He was able to accomplish that task in about 4 hours. I thought he did a wonderful job. Overall, I want to say that Bill and the people he had assisting him, representatives from McNally Landscaping, CE Range, were really wonderful in dealing with myself and my immediate neighbors. I think that they really showed a lot of concern for the people in the neighborhood, and they accomplished a very good task. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for your comments. Bill will be happy to hear that.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Other comments from the public present? Mr. Tucker.
Mike Tucker, Boucher Road. I had the opportunity to sit in your study session today and to listen. I was a little surprised to learn that 5 law firms were invited to kind of participate in your bid process. And what was a little more concerning to me was that only 2 people responded. I believe one was Thomas Sorty, the township attorney, and the Kurt Kobolak law firm. So as a citizen, I'd like to urge the board to fully vet out this process and use the RFQ process and be sure that's publicized in the proper legal newses and mediums. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Other comments from the public present? All right, I see none. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, seconded by Clerk O'Connor. Well, thank everyone for coming tonight. Been a busy evening, and we'll get to work on that coal tower ordinance. Thanks again. Next meeting, October 9th. See you then. During